Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to MST.TV. This is Nishi here, bringing you all another Market Watch episode. So we finally got the ban list that we've all been waiting for, and I know most of you are probably absolutely devastated by all of your favorite decks now being so much more different than they were last format. Yeah, no, I don't really know what that list was about. There were literally 3 changes and none of them were really that significant. But anyways, we did see a tiny bit of movement on the market as a result of these changes, so we'll go over those quickly at the beginning. However, also worth noting is that we did have Toon Chaos fully revealed to us last week. So between the new TCG exclusives, the OCG imports, and all of the different reprints, there were several other significant price bumps and shifts going on with the market, so we'll be sure to go over all of those as well. Let's get started. Okay, so with the new ban list, we really only saw 3 changes. The first of these was Ulti Konoha going to 3, which I guess is a good thing for like the 7 people that want to play Ritual Beasts in competitive tournaments and lose after game 1 because of the new time rules. Really, I don't think that the unbanning of Konoha is going to be doing too much, so I'm not freaking out about this change at all. We did see a tiny price bump in the price of Konoha, which went from being around a $1 card to now being a $3 card. Actually, the only other card from the archetype that's really worth noting in terms of price is Ulti Konoha, which was from Cross Souls but actually never had a reprint. So we're now looking at $18 a piece for the Ultra Konoha and a whole $25 for the Ultimate Rares, which is a pretty hefty price tag for a rather average card. However, if we really look closely at it, this isn't a huge jump in the price of Konoha, because even before Ulti Konoha went to 3, we were seeing the prices of each the Ultra Rare and the Ultimate Rare between the $10 to $20 range as a key card from the archetype that doesn't have a reprint. With the unlimiting of Konoha, I think that now is definitely the time to move your Ritual Beast cards if you can to someone that is overhyped to play the deck, because I don't think that the deck is going to see an increase in viability anytime soon. Next up, Geist Multifaker went to 3, which I guess is interesting. I remember when Multifaker first got hit to 1, everyone was kind of confused by it since it had kind of seemed like more of a rogue or tier 2 strategy just at the fringe of the meta at the time. I guess the card being back at 3 is a decent boost to the deck. It means that it has the ability to interrupt your opponent more consistently, and the deck can still function if somehow your opponent gets rid of one of your copies of Multifaker. Geist saw a little bit of success last format with the occasional top here or there, but they haven't really done anything noteworthy at all since the release of Eldritch and Adamancipators in Secret Slayers. To be honest, I feel like the deck is just a worse version of Eldritch or Subterror, 2 arguably stronger stun decks this format. Multifaker is also the only card from the archetype that saw a really notable movement in price, as it went from being a $1 or $2 card to now being $4 for the Prismatic Secret Rare or $5 for the Ultra Rare. While the deck is cute and you can certainly play it if you want to and do reasonably well with it, I don't think that it's a top tier contender by any means, so if you have extra Multifakers lying around from when they were limited, now is definitely the time to go ahead and offload them while there's some hype around the card. So the last ban list change was Necros of UNICOR going to 3, and I think that this is probably the ban list change that I'm most afraid of actually being super impactful. Necros of UNICOR is not just a 2300 body, but it's a pretty big floodgate monster negating the effects of face-up monsters on the field that were summoned from the extra deck. It can also be summoned with Kaleidoscope by dumping Herald of the Arclight from your extra deck, getting you another free search for any ritual monster or spell card. I think that having this card at 3 could definitely be scary when the Dragma archetype comes to the TCG, because you have the ability to dump Herald of the Arclight so consistently and fetch this card, you can pretty consistently lock your opponent out of their extra deck monster effects. Now this card only has 2 printings. The original Secret Rare from Secret Forces is about $7 a piece now, and the Ultra Rares from Dual Power are about $3 to $4 each. This isn't too bad. Necros of UNICOR isn't one of the Necros cards that was short printed in either run, so there should be quite a few of them running around. Also worth noting is that a lot of the Necros cards already saw a bit of hype with the announcement of the Dragma archetype about a month ago, so we didn't really see too much more of a price jump in the rest of the cards from the archetype. One last ban list related card that I want to talk about briefly here is Adamancipator Researcher. So I think that a lot of people, including myself, thought that Block Dragon was going to be hit on this ban list, and as a result, we really saw the price of Adamancipator Researcher trending downwards because people were afraid that it wouldn't be as strong of a deck. It originally looked like it was going to continue going upwards towards $70 or $80, but then it kind of fell back down to the $45 to $50 range. Well, with this list officially being revealed, Adamancepators weren't hit at all, and I think that a lot of people are definitely looking at this deck as being potentially the best deck of the format, and certainly at least the best combo deck in the game at the moment. As a result, we've seen Researcher jump straight up to being $60 a piece, which isn't actually that bad at all, considering that the card was short printed in Secret Slayers. Researcher's price is going to absolutely depend on the performance of Adamancepators this format. If it establishes itself as a tier 0.5 deck maybe this format, and somehow finds a way to push Eldritch out of top tier contention, then maybe it will continue to trend upwards. If the deck tanks and falls out of favor, then maybe we can expect the price to continue to tank even further. Realistically though, we'll continue to see Eldritch and Adamancepators as the two best decks in the game, and Researcher will realistically stay steady as a $50 to $60 card. Okay, so on to the results of Toon Chaos. Let's take a look at a couple of different Toon cards, since they were a pretty big focus in the immediate aftermath of those reveals. Now, Toon Chaos was weird because even though it has Toon in its name, we only saw one Toon card reprinted, and it wasn't Toon Kingdom. It was actually Toon World, which is kind of a joke. I don't even think you play Toon World in the deck anymore. I wouldn't freak out too much though, because apparently we are going to see a number of Toon cards reprinted in Legendary Duelist Season 1, and then we do have the Dragons of Legend box set coming out later on this year as well, so some of these cards could very well be reprinted in there as well. But for now, we did see jumps in a number of different things. The big one was Comic Hand, which doesn't have Toon in its name, but it's essentially a snatch steal for the Toon deck that turns the monster you steal into a Toon. It is a really big card, especially if you can steal like a big Nibiru token and then cheese your opponent with it out of nowhere. Now, I don't think that Toons are necessarily going to be a good or meta deck, but they'll definitely be a really solid fun deck that can steal games from meta decks here and there, and this card is a big reason why. Now, it does only have the one printing out of Dragons of Legend 2 as a secret rare, and initially we saw a really big price spike all the way up to $25 or $30, but it has cooled off since then pretty quickly to around the $13 mark that it's at now. Honestly, not too horrible of a price, though just do keep in mind that with this deck you're picking up a rogue strategy, not a meta one, right? So don't expect to win a ton of games with it. A big part of whether this card goes up or down depends on if we see it reprinted in either the Legendary Duelist Season 1 box or the Dragons of Legend Complete Series box, though we'll have to wait quite a while to see the results of the latter one. Okay, so next up is kind of a silly one in my opinion, and that's Super Rare Toon Masked Sorcerer from Astral Pack 8 seeing a buyout. So as an Astral Pack Super Rare, this version of the card is fairly old and hard to find, and it's the only holo version of the card. This card was actually bought out before the reveals of the Toon Chaos cards, and I think that the idea behind it was that it's probably the best Toon monster that you can normal summon, because when it deals battle damage you get to draw a card. This is one of the few ways that Toons can go and actually generate advantage, since a lot of the other cards in the strategy just go 1 for 1. In theory, it's a really good card. However, after seeing the new support and looking at a lot of different builds that are running around online, Toon Masked Sorcerer isn't actually something that's seeing very much play, so this is definitely something that I think is overhyped because we really won't see much of a demand for it. This card peaked at around $28 each, but now it has settled back down to around the $20 mark. However, due to how little play I think it will see, I wouldn't be surprised to see this settle back down to within the $5 to $10 price range within the next couple of weeks. If you do have some, I would absolutely try to move them and get as much value for them as you possibly can. Okay, so the other half of the Toon Chaos set is Chaos cards, a theme that we saw a tiny bit mixed in with Guard Dragons and Thunder Dragons last year, but before that we haven't seen as a meta strategy for quite a while. However, there is a lot of good stuff in the Toon Chaos set, and a lot of people have different ideas for how best to use the new Chaos support. One of these ideas is to play Thunder Dragons as well as the new Nemesis cards and make a really interesting sort of hybrid deck, which I haven't actually seen a fully developed build for, but sounds kind of interesting. Now, the regular Thunder Dragon cards, right, like Hawk, Dark, and Roar, haven't done too much in terms of price. They're still all at around the $2 to $3 mark. No changes there. However, it is worth noting that Dragon Matrix Super Rares from the OTS tournament pack did see a small price bump, hitting as high as $10 before now settling down at around the $8 mark. Now, I don't know just how legit this strategy is going to be, but it's something that I would keep an eye on for now. If you want Thunder Dragon stuff to potentially use, I would grab those cards like Hawk, Dark, and Roar now, because they are already quite cheap anyways. With Matrix specifically though, I would look at moving the supers and content yourself with playing the commons or the rares for now, since you should be able to get like your whole playset for under $1. Next, these two cards have kind of jumped up in price under the radar. Vision Heroes Ferris and Increase were fairly affordable before, around the $10 to $13 price point a piece for quite a while, but have jumped up recently to around $19 for Ferris and $22 for Increase. This is fairly surprising because we haven't actually seen heroes do anything relevant since Destiny Hero Malicious went to 2. They haven't seen success at all really in online play, despite how you would have access to expensive cards like a Dusted Gold and Malicious Bane, which is really surprising. Despite this, heroes are still undoubtedly a fan favorite deck that a lot of casual players will want to pick up and play, so it was kind of inevitable that key cards for the strategy with only one printing would go up in price over time. Also, we finally did see reprints of cards like Masked Hero Acid and Masked Hero Dion, making the deck a little bit more affordable, so perhaps that's another factor in pushing some of the other pieces for the deck upwards in price. At any rate, I do think that it's worth keeping in mind that Ferris and Increase are due for a reprint within the next little while, because it has been a little bit more than a year since their release, and they are key cards for a very in-demand archetype that can help Konami to push out product. So yeah, I think that if you're a hero player, keep them if you want to play the deck, but if you're not playing the deck or you just have these cards lying around, you should probably try to move them within the next couple of months before they do see that reprint. Okay, so one card I do want to briefly mention here that has spiked in price out of nowhere is Vylon Sphere. So this card was actually featured in a Flame Noble Knight combo video posted by Pack, the guy who played with Team Samurai X1 and Triff Gaming at the Las Vegas 3-on-3 YCS. In the video, he discusses using the card as a tuner that can be summoned off of Needle Fiber, and because it's a machine, you can use it to make Auroradon as well. Importantly, whenever it gets sent from the monster zone to the graveyard, you pay 500 life points and equip it to a monster. You can then send it to the graveyard from there to equip an equip spell from your graveyard to a monster you control. In the combo, he uses it to resolve the effect of Smoke Grenade of the Thief multiple times, allowing you to rip multiple cards from your opponent's hand, which is pretty solid, and eventually he goes on to loop all 5 cards out of the opponent's hand. Now, I don't know if this is going to be the standard play or the standard build when the deck eventually does come to the TCG, but it definitely does sound interesting. As a result, we've seen the supers from Hidden Arsenal jump up to around $4 a piece, and the dual terminal prints are up to $17 each. This isn't unheard of for cards like this. With just the 1 DT printing and the 1 Hidden Arsenal printing, they tend to spike up in price pretty quickly whenever one of them gets attention. But yeah, this is definitely something that you can try to dig up out of your bulk for now, because it is a card that's worth a few bucks out of nowhere. And the final buyout that we'll take a look here in today's episode is Ultimate Rare Scapegoat. So this card was a really strong card when it was at 3, because it basically put 4 monsters on the field for you to link climb with if you used it at the right time. However, it also got limited and it tanked in price right away, down to around the $20 mark. Despite this, it has steadily increased in price over time as a result of separate buyouts. The first buyout saw it jump in price to the $40 to $50 mark, and the most recent one from within the last few weeks saw it hit the $85 mark that it's currently at. As long as Link monsters exist, I don't think we're ever going to see this card come back to 2 or 3, so it's not like the buyout is a result of a shift in the meta. I think it's definitely the result of people wanting to play GOAT format because it is one of the defining cards of that format, and GOAT format is extremely popular. Now, it's not the most expensive or the most sought after rarity, because there's still the Retro Pack Ultra Rare versions, though those cards are like $200 a piece or so. Because of that price point, I guess people are turning to the next highest rarity, which is Ultimate Rare, which is also technically a higher rarity than Ultra Rare anyways, depending on how you look at it. Whether or not you want this card is up to you, because it does have tons of common and rare and super rare printings, so it's not like you have to play a fancy rarity for this card. But if you want to bling out your GOAT deck, it's definitely one of the nicer rarities that you have available. It just comes at a much heftier price tag. Alright guys, that is it for today's episode. I guess a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is going to be basically the same for the next little while, which I don't actually mind too much. The meta is reasonably diverse, and at the very least, we aren't seeing infinite loops like with Firewall Dragon or turns that take like a full 10 minutes to go through. Even the combos that Synchro Eldritch pulls off are pretty reasonable in terms of time, and there's definitely a lot of counterplay that makes the game interactive as well, So I would say that Yu-Gi-Oh is in a pretty decent spot at the moment. Anyways, guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button for me. Also, please be sure to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think of today's Market Watch episode. What else is going on with the market that maybe I didn't cover in today's video, so that I can potentially cover it in a future video to keep you all as informed as possible. And of course, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to Tombox and myself for all of the latest and greatest Yu-Gi-Oh content. And until next time, guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.